Hey everyone, it's Jexie. Welcome back to another video. I'm really excited for today's video because I feel like it's a topic that a lot of people in recovery can relate to. I have been talking to a couple people, as I usually do in between when I film, and I love getting everybody's feedback. And some of the feedback I got was how I dealt with reservations in recovery. Well, those of us in recovery hear that word all the time, but in case you don't know what reservations are, the best way to describe it is what may cause you to use. Simple as that. So a lot of people have reservations, and what we're going to talk about specifically in this video are reservations about using a drug other than what your drug of choice is. For example, let's say you're a heroin addict or a crack addict. Can you drink alcohol again? Or let's say alcohol is your drug of choice. Are you able to then smoke pot in the future? So a lot of times that's something that gets people really held up on the ideas of I can never use any drug for any reason ever again. And it does cause people to go back and relapse. So I thought it would be a really good discussion to have as to what our reservations are and how we can work through those feelings. So for me, I currently, as I've said before, have a little over 6 years clean. However, my current clean date was not my first clean date. I had gotten clean probably about, let's see, it was Valentine's Day of 2012. So it was about 10 months, I guess, before I got clean for good. So I had had about 6 months clean. And I had my husband at the time, had decided that for my birthday in June, so March, April, May, June, okay, that's a lie. I had about 4 months clean. And my ex-husband at the time decided that he was going to take me out to a super fancy restaurant, one of those restaurants that have tasting menus where you get like 8 courses and you taste a little bit of everything. And he was going to do the wine pairing. And he knew that I couldn't drink. I had decided, I am in a 12-step program, so for me to follow that program, I abstained from any mood or mind-altering chemical. So he had convinced me, since it was my birthday and I had never really had a problem with alcohol before, that I could have like a few sips of his wine for each course so that I could appreciate the whole experience. And I totally was on board with that. I was like, yep, that sounds like a great plan. I don't see any problems with it. Alcohol wasn't my drug of choice. I didn't have to drink as soon as I woke up in the morning. I didn't treat alcohol the same way that I had with opiates. So a few sips of wine, like what difference is that going to make? Well, let me tell you. By the time we got to the end of the night, a few sips of wine when you're getting served multiple glasses of wine adds up. I was not drunk, but I was fairly tipsy. I remember asking him, well, since I've already drank, what do you think about sharing one of your pills with me? Because he had been prescribed painkillers. And he lost it. He was like, no, that's not what this is. I thought we were only gonna, a couple of sips of alcohol, like that's a completely different thing. But by that point, in my head, it was the same thing. I had already drank. I was already feeling it. So what difference does it make if I get to feel the way I really like to feel? I'm already messed up. So on the way home from the restaurant, he ran into 7-Eleven. I reached in his glove box and I took out one of the pills. And for the next few months, that was it. I was still going to meetings. I was still showing up for service positions, but I was using. And it was an awful feeling. I felt like everything I'd worked for I'd thrown away, and I was right back to being that sick where every thought in my mind is how to get the next pill. And it was awful. It was awful. It was the same awfulness that I experienced before I got clean in the first place. My official clean date is November 6th of 2012, and I got caught. He told me that he had found out that I had been taking his pills again, and I was really grateful that he called me because I couldn't continue that way. And luckily, it had only been a few months. The downhill progression can go very, very fast, so a few months was all I needed to be right back at rock bottom. And I decided that I was going to go into detox for 5 days just to clear out my system. I didn't go to like a whole month-long rehab program again, but I did call the program I had went to originally and asked them if I could just do a 5-day detox, like get myself back together. And that's what I did, and I've been clean since. So I know for myself that a few sips of alcohol can be completely detrimental to my recovery. So I don't have a problem when I go to weddings and people are drinking to not drink. I'm not sure I would be so confident that way if I didn't have this relapse experience. But because I've relapsed because I drank a few sips of alcohol, I know that that's not a safe place for me. So I stay very far away from alcohol. So my reservation probably would be more geared towards smoking pot. Look, I don't wake up every morning and say, hey, I want to smoke some pot. Like, it doesn't work that way. However, the idea that, once the kids are away in college, maybe I'm on the beach in Maui, what do you mean I can't smoke pot? The other problem is that, like, for something like pot, I never considered it a drug. I considered it less of a drug than alcohol. So how do I reconcile those feelings of not even considering pot to be a drug when I know that using it can be dangerous to my recovery? There really are conflicting theories, ways of looking at things. So this is what works for me. And I know for other people it may work completely differently, but for me, this is how I keep myself clean. What I do is I don't think that if I smoked pot, it would automatically lead me to my drug of choice the way alcohol use would. I know it would happen with alcohol. And maybe at the time I didn't think it would with alcohol either, but I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think that smoking a joint is going to cause me to go blow pills up my nose. Pot was not my first drug. It was not the first thing I ever tried, and it never really led me to other things. However, and this is what's important, for me to be working a successful recovery program for myself, it requires that I maintain complete abstinence from all mind and mood altering chemicals. So my thoughts on whether I think marijuana is going to cause me to go back to my drug of choice are sort of irrelevant. I don't need to reconcile it in my head that if I use marijuana, it's going to cause me to use opiates. I don't need to do that. What I need to do is recognize that the program that I've been working so far in recovery has been successful. And that program states that I should stay away from any chemicals that alter my mood or my mind. So I'm even really careful. When I used to have a cold, I would just swig the Robitussin or whatever brand from the bottle. It didn't occur to me to measure it out. It's close enough. But in my recovery now, I don't do that. I do measure it out. I'm very careful. I don't take medications unless I absolutely need them. I just maintain that habit of being super careful about everything because it's been working. So I know a lot of people come in here and they're used to very, very hard drugs. And they say, well, why can't I drink? Having a beer at the Super Bowl or something isn't going to cause me to start smoking crack or put needles in my arms. And I would say maybe that's true for you. I know it wasn't true for me, but maybe it is true for you. However, I would ask you to consider how it feels when you're working a recovery program where you're staying completely abstinent from everything. And you can feel good about the fact that your mind is always clear, that you remember the night, that you know the decisions you're making are your own. You're not making choices based on an impaired state of mind. You can drive home and not be worried about getting pulled over and get a DUI. There's all of these positive things. Is it worth the risk of a couple of beers? Let's say alcohol is your drug of choice. Well, then you don't, to stay away from alcohol. It may be having to take painkillers for a longer, maybe you've had surgery. and you needed the painkillers for 3 days, but you have 10 days worth, so maybe you consider taking the rest of the dose. I would ask you is if how you feel in recovery, if that is worth the risk. We can preach to each other and say what is right or what's wrong to do, right? But that's not what we do. I was told in recovery we share our experience. We don't tell people what's right. I know for me that using any substance puts me at risk. And I don't ever want to go back to the place where I'm blowing pills up my nose all day long, crying because I don't want to do it anymore. So if not having a beer or not smoking a joint is going to guarantee me that I don't end up there, then I'm going to take it. It's just not worth the risk to me. It's not worth the risk of I smoke a joint and my brain says, this feels good. I forgot how nice this feels. And just make myself more susceptible to using my drug of choice down the line. I'm happy in my recovery. And I'm comfortable with who I am. I'll tell you this, there's something really fun about going to a wedding with a whole bunch of people who get really, really drunk, and you know you're the only one that remembers the way everything went. Staying clean doesn't have to be miserable. I think if I was going to give any suggestion in regards to reservations, is that you should figure out how it is that you think about these things. Because if you're not sure, those thoughts can sneak up on you. So again, for me, when I look at it, I don't have to look at marijuana as being a drug that's going to lead me to other drugs. I don't need to believe that to make the decision to never use marijuana. I don't have to believe that it's going to kill me to not use it. I don't believe taking an extra dose of Robitussin is going to, cause me to relapse. But they're bad habits. And it's like chipping away of the recovery program I have. And every time I make a choice like that, I'm chipping away the foundation of my recovery. And then that leads me more likely to topple over. I'm happy where I'm at, and I want to stay there. So thank you guys so much for listening to another video. I would be super, super interested to hear what reservations you have. How do you view substances that aren't necessarily your drug of choice? How do you reconcile it in your head if you don't consider something a drug? Tell me what works for you. I love the conversation. I think this is how we help people. Not everybody is going to hear what I say and be like, that's right, that's what I agree with. But maybe you guys in the comments, maybe they'll be able to read something there that helps. So let's talk about it. I'd love to hear your opinion, and I look forward to seeing you guys next video. Have a great day, everyone.